You guys, I just wanted to make a video to explain sort of how the culture projects went well or went wrong. I made 2 example projects to show common mistakes people made, like where they went wrong, and how to fix those common mistakes with a comparison project. So I have like a bad project and a good project to show you the differences between sort of what happened on a lot of people's projects and what I was hoping for. So here we go. So right now I'm looking at the bad project, and on the very first title slide, if you're paying attention, you'll notice the title just says Venezuela, and the name is just the first name, and it's not capitalized. Okay, but the culture project isn't about just one whole country, everything that ever happened in that country, right? We're supposed to choose a specific topic for that country. So a way that the title slide could be improved is if we switch to the good project, it would say your topic and the country, and it would have your name, first and last name, with capitals. Okay, the next common mistake or common issue, on the very first slide, in the template, I have a when slide. If you take a look at this slide, it still has all the original prompts on it. So it still says, when did your thing start? When does it happen now? Is there a special day of the year related to your thing? Those questions are mostly thought questions. You actually don't even need to answer all of them. So in a lot of slides, people would put answers like, my thing started when the country started, and it happens every day. And is there a special day? Nope. Instead, you're supposed to sort of, those are questions to get you going so that you know what types of things to look up. You don't even need to answer more than about 1 or 2 of them, really. So a comparison would be on the good example. The good example would be, instead you would say, Venezuela was being colonized in the 1520s, and you sort of just explain all the different aspects of like the background information related to your topic. So you know, and like, so I have like 3 to 5 sentences is usually good. So this one, the ending sentence just says, the hand gestures used or avoided in Venezuela have been around for many years. Some are influenced by the European history of Venezuela, and some of the hand gestures are influenced by the neighboring country of Brazil. So the next one is we go to the photo. Now, if you're looking at this bad culture project all in order, right, the title slide doesn't really tell you what the specific topic is. The when doesn't have any information on what the topic is. And this photo is generic enough that it's not very clear, even still on the 3rd slide, what the project is supposed to be talking about. All right, so instead of just a generic photo that just says photo, it can be helpful to have a photo that's specific to your project. And even if the photo is not super clear, to add a caption so that you can explain what the photo is for. All right. Then the next slide was our where slide, and some people took it seriously and some people did not. But some people would put things that are very generic that could apply to anything or anyone. So this where slide, for my example of a bad slide, would be they left the original questions on here, the where is your event, building, region, or city, and then they answered it with anywhere there are people. Now, if you already know that the topic is hand gestures in Venezuela, that makes more sense. But because the bad project has so far not even told us what the topic is, we have no idea what happens anywhere that there are people. So a change to make is, now if you think about hand gestures, they do happen anywhere there are people. They are not necessarily located in a particular place. And so this whole slide may not be super applicable to the project in this particular instance. So on a good presentation, somebody who's paying attention would realize, oh, do you know what? Where doesn't really work with my presentation. It might work if, say you were doing hand gestures, if there were certain hand gestures that are only used in particular regions of the country or certain cities, or maybe they have special hand gestures for when they're at their particular religion at that country, or right, if it has a specific location where it's applicable. But in general, hand gestures are something that's used any day of the week, any time when it makes sense. So instead of having a where slide, a student who's like thinking through all the logic of it would say, oh, the where slide doesn't fit my project. I'm gonna just give information about my project. So on the example of the good culture project, I had to get rid of the where because it's just not applicable. And instead I described common hand gestures used in Venezuela. And I gave information on what they're for and how you make the hand gesture. And then the next slide on each has a map. So the bad one has a map, and the good one has the same map. And not everybody might know where Venezuela is, so it would be good to have a map of where to find it. Okay, the next slide on the bad example culture project. Okay, on the important details slide, again, the questions were left where they were. And if you look at the information on the slide, you might notice that it looks copy and pasted, right? Because the type is a completely different font from the whole rest of the font. It doesn't really match anything else, and it's not even really using words that a student would normally use. So what's better to do is if you find information that seems useful to your project, instead of copying and pasting it in, it would be better to rephrase it in your own words. So even if I was to keep this information, instead of it saying in the 16th century Venezuela was contracted as a concession by the King of Spain, I would rephrase that into something like, the King of Spain made a contract with the German Wessler banking family regarding the ownership of Venezuela in the 16th century. Right? It's all the same information, but it's restated into your own words. And then these two bullet points saying like that the North American OK sign is extremely rude, that's not even related to the King of Spain and the German Wessler family. Like, these two sets of information are completely disorienting because they aren't related to each other. So we need some transitions to move from one topic to the other. So if they're both important details, we need to have some transition sentences in there. So after talking about the history, like with the King of Spain and the German family, then I'd say, there's also important information to know about certain hand signs that are different between our culture and Venezuelan culture. An even better way to do it, though, is an example in my good culture project, example 1. So on this one, on the good one, important details, I just didn't do the history part with the King of Spain because it didn't feel very important. Like, it's a sort of important detail, but it wasn't necessary. So instead, I just said that when traveling to Venezuela, it's important to remember that hand signals that Americans use can be offensive in other cultures. And in fact, using the thumbs up is a good hand signal, and using the OK symbol, like with where you make a circle shape with your thumb and pointer finger, is actually super rude. And so my important detail slide is just talking about that that's important to know. This is an important detail, that not all hand signals are universal. And then in the good project, I put a picture of hand signals or common hand signals and pointing out the good one and the bad one. In my bad example, on my important detail slide, remember I talked about King of Spain. My next slide has a picture, a painting of an old old-fashioned white guy, but there's no caption, so we actually don't know if it's the King of Spain or the German Wessler banking family. We don't actually know who this guy is, so it's not a very helpful photo, right? In the good example, right, the picture directly relates to the previous slide. So if it's not clear who it is, you have to have a caption to make it clear. Or if it's not clear, it might be better to consider just doing a different photo, so that way the photo speaks for itself. Okay, on to the next one. Remember that this why is it important, why do people care about your thing slide is basically your conclusion slide, where you're supposed to sort of wrap up all the main ideas. So on a not well done culture project, you would say, everywhere are hand gestures that are rude, so it's important to not make people angry. Right, that's an example of a not very good conclusion. Instead, a better conclusion is saying something like, hand gestures are a way to communicate quickly or put emphasis on something being said. They can be useful in conversations if you are careful which ones you use. Every country has special hand signals that are unique to them, and they become almost a second language of the country, almost like a secret code that only the people of the country know. It can be important to the culture of a country to have these signals that are special to you. So, for example, a different example is in Italy, they have specific hand signals for all kinds of things. They have hand signals for if somebody else is being sneaky or is going to rob you. They have hand signals for, like, you're exhausting and I'm tired of listening to you. They have all kinds of hand signals that are very specific to that country. And they can have whole conversations where they don't even really have to say anything. They can just do a couple hand signals and somebody will immediately know, oh, they don't like me and they're tired of listening to me and they're going to leave now, right? So this conclusion slide is a lot more it's a much better wrap up of the main idea than everywhere are hand gestures that are rude, right? Like, that's not very useful of a conclusion. The last photo is the same on each set of slides, but the difference is that on the bad slides, it just says photo 3. On the good slides, it explains what we're looking at, and it says Venezuelan people at a protest. And you'll notice they're all using their hands at this protest, right? They're all gesturing about something. Okay, the last slide is the most applicable to the most number of people. This is where the most common mistakes were happening. On your bibliography, you are supposed to have 4 sources. That means 4 websites that relate to your topic. If we take a look here, the first one was from the template. It's the original one from the template, and if you read the title of what it's about flamenco dancing. Is that related to hand gestures? The answer is no. So the example one is supposed to be deleted. You're not supposed to keep it. You're supposed to delete it and replace it with the ones that you're actually using. Another common issue I noticed is that some people would just copy and paste their link and call it a day. And that tells me where you got your information, so that is useful. But part of this project is learning how to use MLA format, which is a format of how to list your sources that you are going to use your whole life, all the way through college. And so I'm trying to get you to practice doing it now. Another issue I ran into a lot is that some of you would use Google and you would search your topic, and then you would copy and paste your Google search bar into your bibliography. That is not a useful source. Google search is basically just the telephone book of the internet, okay? All Google does is tell you everywhere else you can look to find out information. Google itself is not a source at all. Even when Google gives you the little pop-up at the top of the box giving you a summary, it's using that information from a different website. It is not Google telling you that. It's Google doing the search for you and giving you the most likely result and giving you like a 1-sentence summary to see if that's what you need. So this is not going to fly. This doesn't work. Because see, if I copy and paste this into a new tab, look at all the things that are available. I have no, like as a teacher, I would have no idea which of these websites you actually read, okay? So that just doesn't work. Instead, let's say, okay, you use this search. Let's say you used Wikipedia. I don't even mind if you used Wikipedia, because we're not focusing on how good your sources are yet. We're just focusing on, did you look up more than one website, basically. So say this is the one I used. I'm going to show you how do you turn this website link into a properly formatted thing, a properly formatted source. So here's our website, here's our address. We're going to go to bibme.com. Bibme, it just means bibliography, okay? So this is a bibliography maker. So it takes your sources, you copy and paste your website into it, and it will format it the way that it needs to be formatted. If my internet's gonna work, let's see. Oh, it's bibme.org. My apologies. Okay. So on this page, on bibme.org, you're gonna click, I only want to create citations. You click MLA. And then you're going to take the website address. So, and then you do Control C or Command C, depending on what kind of computer you're using. You do Command V to paste it, or Control V, and we're gonna search. Okay, so this is what it popped up with, and we're like, yes, that is the one we want, select. Then we scroll down a little bit and it says, here's what we could find about it. They could not find a publisher or a sponsor, which makes sense, right? It's Wikipedia. They're not really going to be able to find an author necessarily. I mean, we can search through and see if there's any authors, but I don't believe that it's going to be posted anywhere here. Yeah, it's not. It's just from Wikipedia. Okay, so if you can find an author, say you're using a different website that's not Wikipedia, if you can find an author, you should put their name in. It's best if you can do that. Then we just click Create Citation. Okay, it wants me to watch an ad. So I'm going to let the ad run for a minute, and then it will let me do what I need to do. Okay, now it's done. Alright, and here it is. It's in yellow right now. Now, I don't want to just copy and paste right from there. I'm going to click the copy and paste button. Okay, copy and paste. And then if I come over to my bad project, so instead of this Google search, I would delete the words source here, and I would paste in my new link, my new formatted source. Okay? Alright, hopefully that was helpful. By making these changes and having your bibliography in the right format, you automatically get mastery, especially if you have 4 of them. Adding the captions to your video, or to your project will really help make it have more clarity. And then just make sure that what you're talking about is actually important, is actually relevant. Okay? Because one of the things on our rubric is to put 3 or more points of relevant information in your slides. Okay? So please avoid these one-sentence answers or these answers that just aren't really useful, that don't really give information that helps us understand your topic, okay? All right, if you need to go back and fix stuff, please do it. I'm happy to regrade your thing up to full credit. It's more important to me that you learn how to do this properly than to have you just give up and like not do it at all. So please let me know if you have questions or need help. Okay, bye.